All righty, ladies and gentlemen. So sorry for the delay on that. Alex was just absolutely no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, just immediately throws him under the bus. Welcome everyone. Thank you guys for stopping by. If you don't know, Tuesday is the day in which we do live Q&As. Just kind of going over some topics regarding what's going on in the Pokemon hobby and just any sort of news that may potentially be happening. Anything you kind of want to start off with, Alex?
No, man, I'm ready to jump right into it. Let's do this.
Oh, he's ready, man. He is waiting for it all to happen. All right, cool, sweet. Then I guess we'll kind of talk about the first thing. I would say this is a little bit of a piece of news, but not really. So it is 100% official. I mean, we kind of already knew this, but Temporal Forces, the set list is set in stone. So we knew there was going to be a Japanese set that was going to release on the same day as Temporal Forces, Crimson Haze. And Crimson Haze is going to be a part of our set that's going to release in May, Twilight of Masquerade. So it'll be an interesting thing to see because Crimson Haze and the other set, it's going to be called Masks of Change. Those are going to be the two Japanese sets that'll end up becoming our one English set in May. So we're going to have an English set release that's going to come out on March 22nd. The same time, we're going to have a Japanese set release that's going to come out the same day for the next set. And what's even more interesting about it is if you think we have Paldean Fates come out end of January and we have end of March, Temporal Forces come out, and then they said that the release date for our May set is going to come out at May 24th. So we're now at a point where we've had, I mean, what didn't Paradox also come out in November? So we're like every 2 months getting a set, and so it's kind of interesting to see just how we're just bam just getting product and getting new set releases every 2 months. It feels like maybe this is short-term memory loss, I guess, but I feel like Scarlet and Violet has been just pumping things out compared to Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon, where you got a set every 3 to 4 months instead of every 2.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just feels like it's too much too fast, right? It's like it's too many sets. It's too much supply for the demand we have, like right, at this point in time, and like you said, it's not even going to be a specialty set. We're going to have 2 mainline sets, booster box sets back to back that quick. And, it doesn't seem like they're really ramping down the print runs too much. It spells a little bit of trouble in my mind, if you ask me.
Yeah, and what's weird too is like, and you always have to take everything with a grain of salt, and so I can only give my real anecdotal experience. But when I hear like Temporal Forces is going to be short printed, and then I, with one of my main distros, get full allocations. But here's the thing: is for myself, right? I say take it with a grain of salt because I'm giving my perspective, but I had multiple conversations with other game store owners, including some bigger ones within this hobby. And they were like, hey, I got full allocations. I thought this was supposed to be short printed. And then straight up, like, same thing here. So what's going on where we're hearing news of like sets are going to be short printed, but everyone's getting their full allocations. But then also the same time, we're getting new sets every 2 months. And yet the demand, supposedly is at like, a low compared to the boom of where we are now. So I don't know. It's weird. It's very conflicting to say the least, in understanding where we are in the hobby with the demand.
Yeah, Matt, one thing about the demand is it does seem like there is still tons of money pouring into the hobby. I mean, seeing Evolving Skies hit $600 a box, seeing the Umbreon, which everyone has this like opinion that these higher population reports in Sword and Shield are an issue. These 2, 3, 4, 5,000, 10,000 PSA 10 pop reports, but we're seeing the Umbreon push back to $1,000 for the PSA 10, even though it has so many, and we're seeing less and less on the market. So it's like, there's still tons of money and tons of demand for this stuff. It's just Scarlet and Violet era. There's this feeling out there that you have time. Don't rush into it. These price points are going to be around forever. There's not enough excitement in the sets of like chase cards of people really wanting to open, hundreds and hundreds of packs. And I think that's kind of the issue Pokemon's got going on. So like, kind of like we talked about before, I think they need a new rarity. They need to do something with it.
Well, I mean, we know that we're going to be reintroduced. So for those of you guys that don't remember, if you were during the time of the black and white era, but they had specific trainer cards that had a unique kind of rarity to them. I'm trying to recall what the name of it is, but I can definitely see if I can pull up an article here. But I think they were called Ace cards, if I'm correct. Okay, yep, they were called Ace cards. So are you familiar with those at all, Alex?
No. Oh, the grading company?
No, so there's these special type of like cards that were called Ace cards, and they were like trainers that had like a special type of like design to them, which they were pretty popular during the black and white era. So they're reintroducing those. I mean, obviously we've been told that we're getting new texturized card. I don't know. I definitely agree with you that there definitely needs to be a little bit of something different, for sure. But one thing I do want to actually mention, because someone did say it in the chat. So one of the things that was mentioned was they kind of did this with Chilling Reign in June, August for Evolving Skies, then Celebration September, and then Fusion in November. I would agree with that, but also at the same time, that was I feel like a special, and I could be wrong, but that was a little special because of the 25th anniversary being introduced. Because if you literally follow that up, we had Fusion in November, but then we had Brilliant in February. So you go, all of November into December, into January, into February. So it was 4 months from there. And then the following set after that was Astral, which was in May. And then you have Pokemon Go, which that was, May to July. So June, July, that was a quick one. But then from July to Lost Origin in September. So I guess, maybe in hindsight, it definitely feels like we have been getting like more consistently towards the back end. It has been closer to 2-3 months than 3 to 4. I mean, the last 4 month we did get 100% was from Fusion to Brilliant. So, and since then, I don't think we've had a set that's been within a 4-month time span of one another. I don't know. Is there any you kind of recall, Alex?
I mean, I do know that, like, I mean, the time frame sound right, but I mean, Astral, it was not. I mean, the reason Astral didn't even really get like a full reprint, right? It's because it wasn't popular enough. Pokemon Go got absolutely crushed. No one wanted it. Like, you started to see that interest wane, and like people's wallets get that fatigue because they were coming too fast, and if they're doing it again now, where I think it was pretty easy to argue the demand is less than what it was back in the middle of Sword and Shield. I just think that spells problem. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see these boxes go in the low 90s, 80s every single set until they get this figured out.
Yeah, I'm most interested to definitely see if there is going to be a slowdown point, because for us to have, I mean, let's just think about it, right? You had obviously Obsidian Flames, which came out in August, into the next month, 151 in September. And then from September, and this is near the end of September, into November, you had Paradox. Into January, you have Paldean Fates. Into Temporal in March. I mean, we're talking about 6 sets in a row now that have come out within a month to 2 months of one another. Whereas if you look in the like Sword and Shield era, you definitely did see that transition where you had like sets that were about 3 to 4 months apart, and then progressively near the back end it started to become closer to like 2 to 3. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what is kind of gonna happen. And then
not only that, dude, think about like maybe the set gets released, but then like they keep releasing like auxiliary products afterwards. So like we're just getting more like Paldean Face type stuff, right? Where there'd be like new different product releases and stuff into the release of a new set, and they'll do the same stuff. They'll release new collection boxes or new tins or new premium sets or whatever it is, and it's like it just keeps overlapping, and you basically just have product released always. And now we have the Iono boxes getting released. We can talk about that. Like it's just they're spreading so much releases, and there's only so many dollars to go around, right? And so I just think it's an issue.
Well, so a couple of things. I'll first and foremost answer Roger's question. So, AR did get a very tiny reprint when Brilliant got a reprint, but it was very minuscule. Like the price definitely moved, but if you look at like Lost Origin and Silver Tempest reprints, that was a much bigger reprint than what we experienced with Astral and Brilliant. And then also Brilliant came out in February, not January. But yeah, to kind of go to your point with that. I mean, we're just beating a dead horse at this point. Like, I think they need to focus less on this, like, ancillary product, and they need to focus more on their winners. Like, I understand they're trying to push forward constantly, but like, know the sets that win, and then just print those sets. Like the classic collections, I understand that there's an argument to like push the classic collections more because they're wanting to bring the prices down. But classic collections are definitely an item which we've seen has had a very negative sentiment because of the price point that it started out with. Like, I can understand like the long-term investment perspective of the classic collection performance, but that's not what we're trying to target here. We're trying to target the general consumer demographic that is one who's trying to get into the hobby and like collect certain specialty items. You're pricing out a large portion of those individuals out the gate by having such a high MSRP. And so it's like you have items like that which you really have to question. I mean, the Iono makes sense, at least because for me that's kind of like a slam dunk. I mean, the Marnie was extremely successful, which we'll talk about the Marnie too. And seeing a correlation and with the prices and whatnot. So I can understand that, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely interesting to see, because you also had the combined premium power collections that recently got released. I don't know if you know what those are, if you saw those, but like you have some of these ancillary products that are getting pushed, and like they're getting put out in between these like new sets that are being released, but it doesn't feel like there's anything really that's like a spectacle. Like, when was the last? I feel like Crown Zenith. I guess you could argue 151. 151 was definitely the last set that I feel like definitely got a little bit of hype behind it. But I mean, even with 151, there wasn't this like resounding like everyone just loves this set. Like, it wasn't a set that was at first, I feel like, taken too well. It was after the release people started to appreciate it. We haven't seen a real set that's been like majorly hyped up since, I would argue, Crown Zenith. So I don't know. It just feels like right now we're getting a lot of quantity over quality, but maybe I'm being too harsh on it.
No, I agree. I 100% agree with that. Now, what about that? So that Iono box, what's the deal with that thing? I mean, I know you got kind of cut on that. You think that's going to be a big winner?
Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up too. So I kind of want to bring up, for those of you guys that don't know, the Marnie Premium Collection, or the Marnie, not Premium Collection, sorry, because that's another item. The Marnie Milk Collection, or Milk Carton. So when it comes to that item, it was MSRP priced at $40, and it was pre-selling for $85 to $88. So the value of the item itself was extremely high. And if you want to look it up, it's the Marnie Premium Collection Box, Miscellaneous Cards and Products, MCAP. That's what it's on TCG Player. So it's literally, it looks like a milk carton. It comes with some sleeves, some miscellaneous packs in it, and a couple of Marnie promo cards. So MSRP was $40. It was selling for 88, and for the longest time it was sitting around the 80s. Most recently, you might say to yourself, "Oh, Iono's coming out. That must mean that there's going to be like a resurgence of hype behind Marnie." But we've actually seen the inverse. The Marnie box has actually started to go down. I mean, I'm seeing the lowest listed right now for $68 on TCG Player. So that's kind of something that I feel like is worth following, because if you are someone that is a believer of like waifus or waifu specialty items, that might be something that you might want to pick up at a lower price point. If you are a believer of items such as the Iono too, because I know for myself, I am a believer of the Iono collection. I think it's going to probably perform pretty decently compared to the Marnie. Probably not as good because the Marnie came out during like peak hype, but at the end of the day, like, we're seeing it already sold out on the Pokemon Center website, and you've seen a lot of hype behind it, along with like there not being a ton available. I remember, I mean, as a program, we ordered in our wholesale program so many, and we got maybe a fifth of what we wanted because the demand for it is so high, but like the supply of how much they're creating is super duper duper low. So, I mean, it could definitely be an item that I believe could perform extremely well long term, but I, I don't know. It's just kind of the waifu effect again. Iono is just our version of Marnie for Paldea.
Yeah, and I think it also has to do with, I feel like there's not as many deep collectors or like deep set people. Like what I'm seeing is a lot of the cards like in the sets that are holding their value or seeing like upticks are like the most expensive cards, like or the most popular It's like the ones at the top. It's like a lot of the cards like deeper in, you're still seeing a lot of weakness, especially in like the Sword and Shield sets and the Scarlet and Violet sets. It's like everyone just focusing, and it's always been a thing. Everyone always focuses on the top hits, but it just seems like a lot less people are interested in kind of like the less popular items, like the less popular collection boxes, less popular tins, less popular, like, things like this, less popular Pokemon, less popular hits. And it's just really being, I mean, I've seen it myself, even when I sell like, slabs and stuff. I mean, you'd think it'd be harder to sell the higher dollar slabs. No, the higher dollar, $200, $300, $400 slabs, they sell like that, right? Then like the lower end, even if they're PSA 10s, I mean, they take a lot longer to sell. People are a lot less interested in them. And it's just a really strange thing is this community's really just kind of all kind of got on the bandwagon and all chase the same exact things. And there's a lot less of like, I guess, individualized collecting out there as there used to be.
Yeah. It's definitely a tough one because, hindsight's always 2020 with this one, right? Like it's easy for us to always say when you consider a multitude of factors, right? Like Sword and Shield era was absolutely immaculate, right? And not to mention what made Sword and Shield era so good was the second half. And so we can go back and look at the Sword and Shield era and say, wow, the second half of it was incredible. It was phenomenal. And we haven't gotten that with Scarlet and Violet, right? But I think what kind of feeds like into that fuel is the back-to-back-to-back sets that have been just like, I'm not saying that they're like bad per se, but there hasn't once again been really that kind of standout set that we're just waiting for. And we'll talk about it with in retrospect to the release of Pokemon Legend Z A, but I think honestly you could see the like real hype come around the Pokemon sets that are going to be introduced during ZA because as we all know, tag team was something that was introduced in the back half of Sun and Moon. Sword and Shield, it was alt art. So the reintroduction of megas along with what kind of art style I feel like they could have with that is going to be what's up next. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is something that they really won't announce until Worlds, which is in August. So you have to kind of wonder, like, how are the sets going to look for our May set that's going to come out, and then our following set, which you're going to presume is going to come out in July or August? Like, are we really going to have to wait 2 or 3 more sets before we finally get like the back half of the Scarlet and Violet generation? And I feel like that's what just hurts the most, is because in my mind, I'm like, all right, these sets are fine, but Temporal just feels like Paradox Part 2, and I'm waiting for that second half, heat to come out. And in the meantime, we just keep getting every 2 months a new set that just doesn't feel like it's just it for me. I don't know.
What about the effect of the crypto market on the Pokemon? I mean, with Bitcoin reaching all-time highs about again and, all that money, like, will people, I mean, if you look at Google Trends, the crypto market, and it could have been for other reasons too, but it did very much correlate with collectibles and other TCGs as well as Pokemon, as in, it seems like a lot of that money, not a lot of it, but part of that money, finds its way to other things eventually. So, if people, end up taking their profits somewhere around here in crypto, do you think that will help, some of these things, bringing more money into the Pokemon and be able to, support all these different products and things?
Well, it's one of those things where we haven't seen it yet in Pokemon, obviously, because it's always trailing, but you do tend to see a correlation between crypto performing extremely well and then that following with Pokemon as people take profits. So it wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, Bitcoin did retest its all-time high at 69,000. Obviously, once it hit that price point, it got rejected because people were wanting to take profit as it got closer to its all-time high. So I think it's at like 62, 63 right now, thousand, but it'll be interesting to see because I presume it's going to break that once again at some point. And really ultimately with that, you know, if we're talking about the just idea of prices of Pokemon following Bitcoin, and it usually happens in like a 2-month period, it would be fascinating to see if, hypothetically speaking, you did see like a resurgence of Pokemon demand over the next couple of months, or if it does end up kind of correlating closer to what's going to happen on the second half after August. The timing of that would be kind of funny because you have all this influx of, liquidity coming into the market because people are taking their money out of Pokemon or out of Bitcoin. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Not to mention, we are in a little bit of a different market now because it's not like we're in COVID where, people are stuck at home investing in whatever stock that they want to invest in instead of going on family vacations, and then also taking what money they have and opening their old nostalgia with buying Pokemon products. So we'll kind of see how much of that correlation is going to ultimately stay true after COVID is officially over.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see. I mean, I'm kind of bullish on it. I think it's going to continue to help, like as because I mean, even the stock market's at all time highs too. A lot of people, whether for whatever reason, a lot of people just like to take profits when they're up. People in fear of what happens, with the election and stuff. So I mean, will that money, come out and then people will spend it on things they like or enjoy? It's yet to be seen. Some people will say, that the Pokemon boom, it didn't really correlate with the crypto boom. It correlated with other things, but I'm bullish on it. So we'll see what happens. I still don't know if it's going to work its way into all those different, little specialty products. I mean, I think it probably finds its way more to the mainline stuff, the mainline sets more, but that's just me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I obviously gave a little bit of my thoughts on temporal. What are your kind of feelings or sentiments around it?
Well, one, I'm kind of disappointed. I thought it was going to be more centered around Gengar, and it was not. We got like they didn't even get the whole line in there. Like there wasn't even a Haunter illustration to go with it. Like the Gengar is like a full art. I don't know. I was thinking it was going to be more like around that line, more like that kind of style. So I'm not like super happy about that. I think, if I'm being completely honest, I think it's just going to be another middle of the road set at this point. I don't think it's terrible, right? I don't think it's like as bad as like Scarlet Violet base set, but I don't think it's going to be like the set that like really propels us into, the Scarlet Violet, greatness era, that type of thing. I think it's just going to be a, normal performing set.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's probably going to be one of these sets that people look at it and they're just like, oh man, this set is going to be mid. And then it comes out and they're like, oh, it's better than I thought. But then at the same time, it's still underwhelming. Because I feel like that was a lot of the sentiment between Paldea and Evolved. Like Paldea Evolved, Paldea and Fates, my bad. Paldea and Fates. That was a set that I feel like people had a ton of negative sentiment around. And then once they opened it and enjoyed having the baby shinies pulled, then people started to enjoy it a little bit more. That also did happen with Paldea and Fates, to be fair, as well. So, but that's just kind of the feeling around every set at this point in Scarlet and Violet, other than base, which is like, man, the set looks terrible. I guess it's a little bit more fun. I would disagree with that sentiment though with Obsidian Flames as well. Obsidian Flames was an awful set. I hated opening that set. That was awful. That was so not fun to open because it was like Charizard, Pidgeot, and it was that was it. So, I mean, at least you had fun with Paradox. Paradox was, somewhat fun to open, but it wasn't like, man, I'll tell you what, like, and maybe I'm thinking on it nostalgically at this point, but I just remember having so much fun opening Chilling and opening Evolving. Like they were just such fun sets to open.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you why though. It's because they're based around the original Pokemon.
Not Chilling. I
Like
mean,
Gen
Chilling
1,
definitely
Gen
had
2,
originals.
like Gen 1, Gen 2 stuff, like
Oh,
to where, this new stuff, it's like, well, me and you, we're not going to have as much connection to it. Maybe the kids do but it's like me and you aren't chasing Roaring Moon and Iron Valiant.
but like at the end of the day, though, like sure, I can totally see that with Evolving, but like Chilling Reign, there was still a lot of really cool artworks that you could pull.
You got Blaziken, you got Moltres. I mean, those are like the original, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3 stuff.
Yeah, but you had a lot of Galarian Pokemon that were in there that still performed extremely well, like that were sought after. Like I guess in your mind, maybe you're saying like when you look at the Galarian Moltres, you just think Moltres. But for me, like I look at a Pokemon like the Galarian Slowking, and people don't immediately resonate with Slowking and then say I love it, right? Like the designs for the birds for the Galarian versions were really well done. And I think that you can do a poor version. I mean, it's kind of like with the crowns for like terrestrialized Pokemon. People hate the crowns. And so I feel like you can easily destroy a specific Pokemon's design by adding stupid forms or versions of it. So I think it was just a well executed version. So for myself, it wasn't one of these things where it's like, oh man, I love this set because there's a Moltres. It was, wow, I love this set because for me, I didn't really care about Moltres growing up as a kid. Moltres wasn't a Pokemon that I resonated with, but the Galarian Moltres was such a cool art design for an alternate art that I loved it, right? And the same goes with the Snorlax. With the Snorlax, I was like, all right, you can pull a Snorlax, like that's cool, I guess, like it's whatever. But for me, like I really loved the Galarian Rapidash. I thought that was a gorgeous card. I thought that was such a cool card that they introduced, along with the Calyrex cards. I thought those art designs were gorgeous. There was just a lot of really cool alternate art card designs when it came to opening it. That made it like a really fun set in my personal opinion. So plus you had, multiple big chases along with the Blaziken too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean some of those Pokemon are definitely newer. Yeah, and the Slowking, yeah, as well.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean I agree with you. I don't know. I mean, I just think that's for me, that was one of the reasons why I think that's one of the reasons why I liked XY so much is like almost all the sets were based around the original 151 Pokemon. Like, there was a Charizard set, Alakazam set, a Mewtwo set, a Gyarados set. Like, the list goes on and on. And I just feel like that a lot of Sword and Shield, the biggest hits were based around original Pokemon. Whereas you come to now and it's just like they're really trying to make it the new era. And maybe that's why, people like me aren't resonating with it as much, but maybe the, younger generation is.
So here's a real fun, interesting question I think we should be asking ourselves. With the reintroduction to Megas, how do we think that's going to play an effect on the EX era?
I mean, I love Megas. I mean, I'm first of all, I'm glad they went back to EX because like the whole VMAX thing wasn't about it, but I like the EX from XY. Love the Mega designs. I mean, I love all the different like Mega Pokemon and how that was so much cooler than putting the crown on them and doing all the that type of stuff. So it can only be bullish. I mean, adding that in. And then, it's the second half, which should already be stronger and be stronger rarities or stronger cards. I think it's a recipe for success.
Do you think, though, I guess my thing is do you think that there is going to be a huge price correlation between XY era product, whether it be sealed or singles, going up as we get a reintroduction to Mega Evolution cards?
What do you think?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I definitely don't lean towards that, because you saw when we had Arceus come out, you had a lot of level X cards that kind of popped off around the same time during the Diamond and Pearl era.
So what are you asking? If you're talking about like the XY stuff?
I guess I'm saying is that it's like with the hype that was around Legends Arceus and like the reintroduction of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, right? You had a lot of like the older versions of that, right? Because they did a remake. the older original cards, a lot of the values went up because people got nostalgic about it and then went and bought back the original versions. We're
Right.
having an
What are we
introduction.
talking about? Are we talking about like is XY, I guess, the original versions of Megas?
Yeah, yes. XY is what introduced megas. So I guess my question is, do you think that with the reintroduction of mega cards, are a lot of the old megas going to start popping off in value?
I would think so, and I would hope so. I mean, the only thing that like it gets me a little like hesitant to say that is XY and Sun and Moon kind of both are. A lot of the cards just went through kind of a major push with some major percentage gains. So I mean, I got that in theory they could just keep going. I just I'm hesitant to say that because they just had a huge price increase. To see it again that quick, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. Oh man, because I always get fearful because for myself, I'm like in the stage of my collecting career where I'm like, I've kind of put it on pause because of the storefront, and I'm just like, man, I don't want to have to wait for XY to just go up in price before I can get back into it again. Because I'm telling you, man, like I definitely feel like XY value of boxes is, I mean, they've been obviously shot up drastically, but I do think a lot of the singles could be way more than what they are right now.
I've been a believer in XY since the beginning, man. I mean, I remember making videos getting hated on it for even bringing it up. Like I was trying to shill all my own stuff, and I don't even own that much XY. It's just, I don't know. I just think that I think XY is kind of the perfect animal because a lot of people still got in the hobby during that time. The print runs are way lower. The populations, all the cards are way lower. The print quality is as bad as Scarlet and Violet has been, so it's so hard to find those cards in near mint condition. And I don't know. I think it's gonna be the perfect storm if enough people, decide to go back and start collecting that. And if the megas coming back is the thing that does it, then yeah, we could literally see another boom in XY.
I mean, XY, I would say, and this is just my opinion, you can agree or disagree with me on this. I definitely would say it is one of the weaker of the generations when it comes to cards, and sets as well. You definitely have some cool sets within it, but there's a lot of really like lackluster sets. And maybe that comes down to the fact that it wasn't as oversaturated when it comes to rarities, like the sets weren't as big. But also as well for myself, I feel like other than just introducing mega cards as a concept, there wasn't anything special or realistically unique to it that made it like, oh my gosh, this is such an amazing generation because it came up with like a unique art design. It's like the introduction of level X's. Level X's were literally hated so much because the only difference was that you changed it from EX to level X. That's it. Like there was no real like artistic vision or value that came to the cards that made it feel as if it was something special like full arts or golds or rainbows or alternate arts. So I feel like you kind of had that exact same thing with XY where you had megas, but what was it? Mega full arts? Like that's not crazy. Like, Sun and Moon had rainbows for the first half and then continued with rainbows and then also introduced the alt art cards with tag team. Like that's huge when it comes to the development of artistic value within the singles. So that's kind of at least how I look at XY, but ultimately as all things happen, as all things do, age will tend to allow people to look back very nostalgically on it and say, hey, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought, because now that these mega cards are cool, I would love to be able to own one of the original megas because I want to collect all the mega cards, because you bet you're going to be seeing a lot of new Pokemon megas be introduced into the next generation or the next game.
Yeah, I mean, nothing you said is wrong. I guess some of the positives of it is I did like how XY gave the sets more of an identity. Like, I'm not really like wild about these gigantic sets and just throwing like all kinds of different Pokemon all in the same set. Like, I did like how XY kept it pretty like on brand. Like they kept, Phantom Force is about Gengar, right? They kept Breakthrough is about Mewtwo. Breakpoint was about Gengar. Fates Collide was about Alakazam. Like they made the sets about one like particular Pokemon or type, where it's like now it just seems like they throw a million different hits of all kinds of different Pokemon. None of them really go together. Like Evolving Skies is probably the closest one to being like, that's an EV set. Other than that, everything's just kind of a big hodgepodge. And so like, that's kind of what I liked about it. But yeah, I mean, there's no real rarity as in terms of like opening. I mean, you can complete the whole set within one case always, because they're just the rarities weren't there back then. So I get that. I mean, everything you said's right. It just depends on, how nostalgic people are for it.
Yeah, because it's one of those things too where, nostalgia is always going to play the factor. Like, I would be lying if I didn't say that transparently, like, Diamond and Pearl era is arguably one of the worst generations for like the cards. Like, obviously the second half was much, much better than the first half. But like, if you look at some of the sets that came out of it, like, I'm a huge like Gen 4 fanboy, so I can mention a lot of like the sets that I loved. And sure, you had some sets that had popular cards, but the popular cards were just in like hollow form, right? Like, you look at a good examples like Secret Wonders. Secret Wonders had a Lugia, it had a Charizard in the set, it had a Venusaur, it had a Blastoise, but like, it was also a set that had them as holographics, which, holos are obviously more valued during that Diamond and Pearl era. But like, you look back at it and you're like, man, like, this is something I grew up with nostalgically. I love all these cards, all these artworks are nostalgic. But then other people look at it and they're like, it's just a regular holo. Like, who freaking cares? Where's my mega full art Charizard? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to continuously be seen that way because there is that nostalgic factor, which is why I love collecting Diamond and Pearl. Diamond and Pearl is my favorite generation, even though I can look back and say it's pretty bad comparatively to everything around it.
Well, think about this though. Like, I think that's why XY probably looks bad to people. Like, when you take Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, but it's like, if you go back to XY and then you compare it to like what it came from Black and White, it looks like a whole lot better. You know what I mean?
Oh, I don't know about that, bud. Oh, Black and White.
Better than Black and White?
Dude, Black and White was so good. Black and White was an incredible era. 100%. Black and White was such a sick era because you have to think about it. Black and White introduced so many cool.
All right, name a strong set. What's a strong set to you?
Legendary Treasures.
Okay, sorry. Legendary Treasures, I agree. Besides Legendary Treasures, you have Plasma Storm. You have Dragons Exalted with the Dragon Vault. You had Dark Explorers. You had the introduction of alternate art. Plasma Storm has got the Secret of Charizard and Blastoise, and it's got just a full art Lugia.
All it has is a full art Lugia Plasma. That sucks.
But that's it though. Like, but like other than that, like then it goes to like holos and other like lesser known full arts like Victini and stuff. It's like it's not.
But bro, I don't think you understand. When you have a set that has a shiny Charizard with a shiny Blastoise, which I will remind you was the first time a shiny Blastoise had ever been introduced on a card, and then you also add that with the introduction of plasma cards as an art design, which is super sick. Plasma cards were super popular and they still are. Plasma art designs are cool. And then you have the plasma art design with the Lugia and the Articuno. Like, it's more than just like, oh man, there's not a ton in the set. It's also, you have to like look at it and see how many of the cool introduction of like cards there were, because there was a ton of really cool gold cards and plasma cards that were introduced in the back half of Black White.
My point is those people like didn't have no connection to it looking back now from Sword and Shield. Do you think they're going to see anything in those sets either?
Oh yeah, no, 1000% they are. They 100% are. I mean, it's one of those things where and
I wasn't around for Black and White. I look back at a lot of these and I see nothing like that.
Dude,
I mean, obviously there's a few things. I'm saying by and large though, it's like it's probably how a lot of people feel it didn't come up in XY. They're probably like,
oh man, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. And here's my thing. I didn't grow up with the second half of Black and White. I stopped at the first half of Black and White because I started to grow out a little bit of Pokemon, and then I came back during X and Y. And so for me, I didn't really get to like re-explore the back half until some of the people in the hobby were like, you should take a look at like Plasma Freeze and give me your thoughts on the set, because it has plasma evolution Pokemon, which are super sick art design cards, along with like a gold gold Ultra Ball and a gold Secret Rare Garchomp and a full art Plasma Deoxys and full art forms of
So hold on,
Latios.
stop. Let me repeat what you're saying. You are trying to pump up a set with a regular half little art Ultra Ball, a regular half art Garchomp, right? Like these are the things that you think are going to bring people back to a set?
No, I'm saying that, like, okay, how do I want to say this? Like, when you are talking about the introduction of something, okay, how do I want to say this? It's like if you go back to WotC, right? WotC obviously had holographic cards, and holographic cards were the rarity, and they were a cool concept, right? When it came to just collecting. Then you had in the EX era the introduction of Gold Star cards. I think Gold Star cards are sick. You have a lot of people that probably think Gold Star cards are lackluster because they're just saying to themselves, oh, it's not a shiny full art Charizard. I don't care. But at the end of the day, at the time, Gold Star cards were some of the sickest cards that you could have seen. I'm saying that when it comes to the evolution of the of Pokemon itself, yes, you're always going to have the next best thing when it comes to art designs. But my point that I'm making is, for its time, the introduction of full arts along with the reintroduction of the gold cards and plasma were a huge like gimmick that was extremely popular, and a lot of people
I'm not
loved
disagreeing
full
with you.
arts. And so my thing is like, you didn't have a gimmick that was introduced for XY in the same way, because full arts were a part of XY, but it wasn't new. That was something that had been introduced in black and white, and it just continued with XY. And so how I look at it,
but dude, my point is like, I understand the importance of like the new release and all that, and the first appearance and all that. What I'm saying is like, you know, you have people now, right, that just got back in the hobby, and they're going back and looking at some of the top hits in XY, some of the top hits in Sun and Moon, the tag teams, like the Sword and Shield, like, and all of them kind of hold up in their own way. Like, no, very few are going to get into the hobby and go back and want to buy some half art regular Ultra Ball or one of those cards for a top dollar, because it just doesn't hold up. Like the art is just, you know what I'm saying?
I mean,
a gold star is a different thing. Rarity, it's got a whole different following. But like some of these random sets, like the regular hollows, I just don't see it, man. I don't see it.
I mean, I see that you're clinging on to the Ultra Ball as the example, but like,
well, any of them, like Ultra Ball, like the Empoleon, Garchomp. I mean, all those things. Like
having a gold shiny Garchomp and then a full art Plasma Deoxys and then Latios and Latios, like those were very popular. And then you have the subset Plasma cards with all the Moonbryon, or not the Moonbryon, sorry, the evolutions with an Umbreon and a Glaceon and a Leafeon, like having those, like those are huge sought after cards that like evolution fans love to collect, the Plasma EVs. Like that's something where even if you're not a fan of black and white, if you're a fan of specific cards, like you're an Eevee fan, like Majestic Dawn and Plasma Freeze are those two sets that you're like, holy crap. Like if I'm an Eevee lover, like I love these sets. So there is that appreciation for those people that like specific Pokemon cards. I guess I'm just saying that like if I look at XY and I say to myself, which set really gave an appreciation for something, like if you're an evolution fan, you didn't really see that in the same way. And that's why I feel like
I guess, like I said, I guess time will tell, you know. I don't know. It's hard to picture people like, you know, because most people got in during Sword and Shield. Now more continue to get in Scarlet and Violet. I just don't know if people at those ages are gonna care to go back and collect those. We'll see though. We'll see.
I mean, the Ultra Ball is selling for $250. It's an expensive gold card. Like it might seem to you like, who buys an Ultra Ball? Like who cares? But it's like, it's a $250 card. And
well, to be fair, I mean, only like one or two sell a month though, or a few a month. Like it doesn't sell that much.
I mean, it doesn't sell that much, but it's selling at that price. It's not like it's not being bought at that price. It's one thing if it's listed and it's not selling at that price. It's another if it's listed and it's selling at that price, because it is a very rare, scarce card. Like there's not a lot of it that is available. But yeah, no, I think Legendary Treasures though was incredible. I mean, you also have to think too,
Legendary Treasures was a good set. I give you that 100%.
Legendary Treasures was a phenomenal set. I mean, Plasma Storm was such a good set too. I'm a huge fan of Plasma Storm. I mean, Dragons Exalted, dude. Dragons Exalted was such a good set. You gotta at least give me that one too, man. The shiny Rayquaza brought back. I mean, you hadn't seen a shiny Rayquaza in forever, and you've got the full art Mew, and you've got the full art Giratina. And you've got, I mean, I know you might not be a Gen 5 fan, but the shiny Crocodile was such a sick card when it came out. Like, there was so many.
I mean, I'm pulling it up. I don't know. I feel like if I put those cards in front of like anyone that's like under 15 years old, they're never going to care about those cards in their life.
Yeah. Well, you can probably say the same thing if you pull WotC cards and put it in front of them.
Right, but you can't say that if you put like a tag team in front of somebody, and that's, I mean, it's, or like some of the XY, like, you know, mega full arts, like they hold up better than these cards is what I'm saying.
I mean, I guess maybe, huh?
Even like the Legendary Treasures cards, or even some of those full arts we were talking about before in black and white, like I think those will hold up a lot better than some of these half art.
I guess is what you're saying, that because the art designs are so much better, there's a reason why the Sun and Moon era versions of these similar cards are so much more expensive, because of the like alternate art value put behind the tag team cards.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we're in a different level of like the things that people like now. I mean, I think that, you know, the hollows and all those things have gotten so played out and become so worthless in the modern era that it's almost like anyone collecting now equates hollows as like, you know, lackluster now. It's like people want more. They want that bigger, better thing.
But I mean, a shiny
Rayquaza. You really have to like, and like I said, there's always going to be people like take me out of context sometimes. Like people think I mean, there's no market for these cards. They're all dead. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the market for this stuff is going to be so much smaller because it's going to be your like hardcore niche level collectors that really go back and appreciate these things. Where I talk in terms of the general public, like the general 99% of Pokemon collectors out there, they're going to prefer to go to the, you know, the tried and true stuff that like has become big since Pokemon became mainstream again. Pokemon became mainstream again in 2016 time and on. And like, so that's what the majority of people know. They don't know the, you know, cool half art, you know, you see what I'm saying?
I think I see what you're saying, but I think maybe we're looking at it in a different way, because I'm not looking at it as like, oh, I am a mainstream collector. I look at it as I am a specific Pokemon collector. Like if I am someone who is a fan of Rayquazas, or I'm a fan of Evolutions, or I'm a fan of Charizards, whatever it is, right? People, the amount of times I've gone to like card shops and you've had kids pull out binders and like, this is my favorite Pokemon, and then they have one of each of that card. Like that's very predominant. And so for myself, when I look at like the value of sets, I look back and sure, you might say like it's not going to hold up in the same way as like artworks comparatively nowadays. And yes, because of the artworks comparatively nowadays, you're going to have a lot more of like a broader collector base that isn't so specifically collecting one type of Pokemon. They're just liking to collect the artworks and less of the Pokemon, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, like I still feel as if there is going to be a lot of appreciation for those cards, because people that are Rayquaza fans are going to want to collect the Rayquazas from within the specific generations that have them, because they want to collect one of all of them.
I gotta disagree, man.
You don't think that if someone,
I'm seeing it right now with like, I'm seeing with sales right now, like even like some of the great like arts of like popular species, like evolution type stuff. If it's not the top rarities in the sets, they sell so slowly. Like I have trainer galleries of PSA 10s. I have like lower hits of PSA 10s of cards, and the top rarity top hits that sell for $200, $300, $400, $500, those will move 10 before I sell one of the lower ones, because people just aren't caring as much about the lower stuff anymore, even though it's the same Pokemon, I feel like.
So like you're saying those ones are moving, but which ones are not moving as much?
Like, so let's say pick any Pokemon, like, okay, take Moonbreon. Like you'll sell 10 Moonbreons before you sell like a regular full art Umbreon, or you'll sell like a bunch of top rarity of Flareon or Eevees or whatever, instead of selling like the trainer galleries from like Brilliant Stars, or like I mean, Charizard, like you're going to sell your $400 Charizard before you're going to sell like a $50 regular other Charizard or Radiant Charizard or whatever. It's just kind of the way where we're at in the hobby. People are wanting the top stuff, and they'll buy the top rarities in PSA 9s before they'll buy like some of the cards in PSA 10s and lower rarities is what I'm seeing.
I feel like though you're comparing it within sets though is the hard thing. Cause like you could take a set and you can look at it face value, and obviously like if they make a regular version of the card, right, like an EX, and then they make a full art, and then they make a rainbow, and then they make a gold, and then they make an alternate art, obviously like you're going to have those price pointed values based off of the rarity of the card. And like for me, I guess how I look at it in the context of how you're kind of arguing, in my mind, well, yeah, no one wants to go open Evolving Skies packs and not hit an alternate art, because the alternate art designs are cool, but like there's also that aspect of rarity to it that makes it unique. Like the rarity is going to play a massive factor into like why people enjoy it. And so for myself, I guess the point that I'm making with that is within the example you gave, that makes sense within the aspect of the time itself. Because if you're talking about new sets that are being released, everyone wants the new hotness. No one cares about the regular cards. But like, it's hard because it's the like EXs are way less rare now than they were 10 years ago.
Well, here, go back to tag teams. Like I'll have Sun and Moon tag team cards in 10s that will not sell forever. And then if I get like the top alt art tag team version of the same Pokemon, it'll sell almost immediately for, however much more, 2, 3, 4 times more, whatever that card's going for. It's like the top rarities are being sought after. People aren't caring as much about the Pokemon because it's a lesser card. It's not about the Pokemon anymore. It's about that rarity. And even same thing like in XY. I don't know as much about Black and White, but I would guess that's the same. It's like, people are really chasing that top dollar thing. And I feel like it's become less about just getting the Pokemon they want in the card, and it's about getting that rare card.
I don't know. Maybe I guess I'm just not understanding you. Because for myself,
if say you were a Raichu collector, right? Well,
right.
No one's wanting to buy like a PSA 10, a Raichu, Alolan Raichu, but they are willing to buy that card in its top alt art tag team form, but they don't want to buy the regular alt art. It's not the alt art, the regular.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I guess maybe you're missing my point that I was making. My point was you're making an argument between rarities. I'm making an argument between the character itself with the rarities, because obviously
if they don't want to collect the card, if they don't want to collect that card, why would they go back to other generations and collect?
Because if you look at like Dragons Exalted, for example, Dragons Exalted has a regular ultra rare EX Rayquaza. It's selling for $3.44. But then if you go talk about the full art version, it's selling for $132, and the frickin' shiny selling for $250. Like sure. In your argument, yes, of course, that is true, that no one wants to collect the lowest rarity version, which is why the lowest rarity version is getting way less sales volume and it's way cheaper. And we can still see that now within Black and White era, where you can go buy an EX card for $3. Like that's super cheap, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you're going to have players that are going to want to collect specific Pokemon cards that they are doing so because they're a huge fan of that Pokemon. And so if you are an Evolution fan, you're going to want to go collect the level X's for Evolution cards, the Plasmas for Evolution cards. Like you're going to want to go collect the rare Evolution cards. Obviously, there are some people that want to collect the non-rare Evolution cards, but ultimately at the end of the day, I'm just saying there is an appreciation for rare cards of specific Pokemon still.
All right, but take Giratina, right? Everyone wants the alt art version, but like the top rarity Giratinas from like XY aren't being like sought after and sold out. Why?
Give me an example actually for XY.
I think maybe ancient, or I don't know the exact set. I think it's Ancient Origins. Let me see. Ancient Origins Giratina, maybe. Yeah, so like it's a full art, and just no real change. Like it's up a few dollars for the year, but like it's kind of just stagnant. Like it's not that people are all they didn't all see Lost Origin, love Giratina, and then rush back and collect other top rarity Giratina cards. Like I just don't think that happens.
But I feel like I feel like it's funny you're using the Giratina as that example, because if you literally go look at the card that's like literally right next to it, the Lugia is a card that has done nothing but just continue in value, and it's literally just a lackluster, arguably full art card.
I
And the
mean,
Lugia has been performing
continue in
well.
value though.
Huh?
Well, I'm looking. I mean, it's listed at $60 near mint. It was 50 at the beginning of the year. It's up maybe like 15%. Like not crazy.
Yeah, but okay. But that's not, I'm not saying like, oh my goodness gracious, like the card's not like 10xing. That's not the point I guess I'm making with this. The point I'm making is that you're gonna have people that are gonna go and find value with these older cards. It doesn't matter if it's 10xing right now. It doesn't matter if it's 2xing right now. It doesn't matter if it's going up 15 to 20%. I'm just saying that
We'll
why
see.
the
We'll see.
hell is a gold EX ball, or sorry, a gold ultra ball going for $250? Why is a shiny Rayquaza going for $250? Why is a full art Rayquaza going for $130? Right? If you take a full art Rayquaza card from Evolving Skies, like a full art Rayquaza, or a VMAX Rayquaza, we'll call it, whatever, it's not going to be worth a ton, right? It's not, because full arts are not cool, VMAXs are not cool. Maybe VMAX rainbows, but like I don't know. I guess the point that I'm making is like these characters are popular now, and these characters were popular in the past, and so people are gonna collect the popular characters that are gonna have the popular rarities to them. And sure, you might say to yourself like, oh well, the Lugia is only worth 60, or like the Giratina is only worth 30, or it's only gone up 15 to 20% now. But this just kind of goes into my original question, which I asked, which was, do we think these cards are going to pop up once megas are introduced? I don't know. That's just kind of me.
Yeah.
Because now we're looking at XY era cards, which, the values of those specific cards that you're pointing out are still the top most valuable cards within the set. And that's kind of the point I'm making, is that these characters are going to be the more valuable characters within the set if they
Well,
are.
let me ask you this. Let me ask this will probably be a better question. And this is, we don't know the answer. We were just guessing. But like in your opinion, this would be a better idea of like why you think the way you do. In your opinion, what percentage of collectors do you think really go that deep and actually go back multi generations and start collecting older? Like, what percentage of people do you think ever make it to that point in Pokemon?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say probably like at least 60 to 70%. For sure.
See now that tells me everything I need to know. See, we just have different, like we have very different mindsets on that. Like for me, I would say like 20% of people. I think most people stick where they're at. They continue to move forward with the hobby for as long as they stay in the hobby. Maybe they go back and collect some of the cards they want, but I think there's a lot less like hardcore collectors that go back and research and learn everything and want to go real deep into Pokemon. I think most people are surface level, and they collect the things they like, maybe what them and their kids are into, maybe what like they open some whatever it may be. I don't think as many people are as hardcore as me or you or other people like in this hobby or in this chat even are.
But maybe, I guess this is anecdotal, but like as someone who spent a lot of times around game stores, for me, I have had so many interactions with kids that are like 10, 11, 12 years old, that literally they're 10, 11, 12 years old, and they have Diamond and Pearl era cards that they collect. They have EX era cards that they collect. And when I say EX, I'm talking like EX era from like Emerald, Sapphire, Ruby cards. Like they have old cards, because what ended up happening was they found an appreciation for a specific Pokemon, and then they wanted to collect the older version. Or another better example is they had their parents that were into Pokemon collecting. That parent then passed on the love that they have for that card, and then that kid continues with that kind of sentiment behind a certain generation, because they were able to experience that with their parents or family members or friends growing up, right? Like for myself, I know that I was never a big fan of WotC growing up as a kid, because for me, I love Diamond and Pearl. That's what I grew up around. But also at the end of the day, like I have so many WotC era cards that I grew up collecting, because a lot of people in my life grew up with WotC. And so I feel like you have that kind of thing where you've got a lot of people that are growing up with nowadays, but at the end of the day, you don't, you know, see people stop collecting the older things because people grew up around other individuals that collected the older things also. Like I don't know. That's how
Yeah.
I've seen it. And like I said before, I deal with it all the time, right? Especially because I still am very much like going like E4, the card shop that we have in Oregon, right? Like when I
Such
go
a
and
bad
visit,
name, by the way.
the worst, right? When I go visit the card shop and they have Pokemon events that they run, and they have kids that bring their binders like all the time. And I also talk with my like business partner with this, and the amount of times they've had kids that have come in with like old collections of EX or Level X or XY era sets or black and white era sets. Like, you would be stunned with the amount of piles of like vintage cards that are constantly brought into the shop by younger crowds. So that's, I guess, where my personal experience is when I say 60 to 70%, because it's so often that I see it happen.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, only time will tell. I don't know. I just see it as like the majority of people stick with, you know, what the majority of people are seeing, are opening, are into. It's like, I think it's the
I
people
guess
who are.
actually, sorry to cut you off. Someone brought up a really good question. Are you talking about from an investment perspective or from a collector's perspective? Because I'm talking about from a collector's perspective.
I mean, what does that mean though? Like, anyone who owns a Pokemon card is considered a collector, right? Like, I
No,
invest. Put it this way, I invest. I don't see. Here's the thing. A lot of people invest for different reasons. Like, some people, like, you know, Godly Shad in the chat, he's always giving me crap. But he invests based on rarity and scarcity and low pop reports and nostalgia and those things. Like, I invest where I see, you know, the future heading and the trends heading. So like, I invest where I see the majority of people wanting. Like, that's why I'm so like in a modern, is because I see the majority of people wanting these eras, because this is when the majority of people re-enter the hobby and enter the hobby. And so that's why I see these doing as well. I'm not as concerned about how low the pop reports are or how rare it is or the history to the hobby or all that. I know this is the main eras that the most collectors are going to want the cards from. So it's like, it's collecting, and I invest because of the collecting type thing.
but I mean, I feel like that's different though, because there's a lot of people that will literally collect certain characters because they like that character. And then there are some people that will literally invest in cards because they think that those specific cards are going to perform well, regardless of whether they have an appreciation for that character or not. You know, it's like Charizard. I don't care about Charizard, but you and I know that we like to invest in Charizard sealed product because it's going to perform well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, here's the thing. You give me, it's like right now, it's like you give both of us $10,000 and say you have to spend it on something to collect. Me and you are not going to buy the same things, right? Like, it's just, it's each individual person you talk to is going to have a different answer to you. I just, in my opinion, again, I can be wrong, you know, in my opinion, I just think if you talk to the largest majority of people in the hobby, they're going to prefer to collect, you know, maybe some XY, but Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield era, maybe even Scarlet and Violet 151 and stuff so far. But they're gonna collect those things with their dollars before they ever move back to something else. That's my opinion.
So you started in XY. That was kind of
Right.
what you really grew up with, right?
Got back in the hobby with, yeah.
Do you by chance collect anything prior to XY?
Man, I don't collect a lot. I mean, other than these, no.
Okay. So then you're not someone that, I guess, really collects a lot of stuff
Well,
outside
that's
of.
my point though. Like, if I did collect, right, I'd probably go back to like WotC, because that's when I came in the hobby. I started when Pokemon started. But like, for me, I would never make it to mid-era or like anything you grew up in, because I have zero connection to it. And that's my opinion of why I don't think the kids now who got in during Sword and Shield because of their parents or whatever, they're going to have no connection to other stuff. And then if they have no connection and the arts don't hold up, like a lot of the XY Sun and Moon arts still kind of hold up, because if the arts don't hold up and they have no connection, what's going to bring them back and make them feel any certain way? Like, I know Godly Shad's going to say it's all going to be about rarity. It's all going to be about that. There's going to be some, but I just don't think the majority of regular everyday people care about that.
Well, let me ask you this. Why is Charizard such a beloved Pokemon?
Because it just started out being number one. I mean, it was the big
like,
HP with big attack, and it just then from there.
Why is it that there is a consistent demand for Charizard cards time and time again?
Because it's the original biggest, baddest Pokemon. It's same thing in like any TCG. Why is Dark Magician and Blue Eyes the biggest in Yu-Gi-Oh? Like,
but why should that matter though? Because if that is a Pokemon that was collected as the number one OG in WotC, then shouldn't that more or less mean that the appreciation for the Pokemon really only stems back to those that were in Gen 1?
Well, I mean, the reason that Charizard is the most is because, yeah, I mean, I think the majority of people got, remember Pokemon from the original, and the originals are always more. But then, yeah, there's gonna be Pokemon from each era, like Gen 2, Gen 3, then Gen 4, the top ones that, because each generation has people like you who got in during that instead of WotC, and those are going to carry, forward as well. But yeah, I mean, I think the originals are always going to, even though they're reprinted and all the new forms, they're still going to hold, some of the most values.
Well, that's the argument I'm making. What you just said is the exact argument I'm making.
No, it's not though. Like, just because it's the original Pokemon, it doesn't mean the original card of that Pokemon is always going to hold the most value. Like, the first edition, all that stuff. I'm saying, like, if you have,
what do you mean by when you say it's not going to always hold the most value? Because time and time again, every single Charizard card has hold the most value within each set. Has it not? Like, you can't really think of a time in which a Charizard hasn't held the most value within.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So it's like Charizard cards are popular because Charizard is like loved as a character, right? You don't have to be a Gen 1 fan to love and appreciate Charizard as a Pokemon. People love Charizard because they love Charizard as the character. And so because of that, regardless of if you grew up in Gen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, doesn't matter, right? I grew up in Gen 3 and 4. I didn't grow up with Charizard. But yet I still think it's an extremely fun experience to chase a Charizard because I have an appreciation for the character and I think it's a cool character. And so for myself, I guess the point that I'm making with that is it doesn't matter what generation you grew up in. You can still find appreciation for certain characters, new or old. And with that, there is going to be a fan base of people that are going to appreciate those characters and collect those characters.
Yeah, I get that. Like, we're going different directions. Like, I get that for every new set. I just don't think anyone now is going to want to go back and collect a 2006 Charizard just because they like Charizard of the new cards, is my point.
Man. Yeah.
Like, I think every new set with the better and cooler artworks, yeah, I think each new Charizard is going to continue to be low. I just don't know why you would go back and collect some random Charizard from 2008 because you like Charizard. I just don't see it. Like, I have, hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on tons of other stuff I want that from XY through now before I would ever go back and get anything before that, if that makes sense.
I guess it's hard because for me, like, it's an appreciation of the artwork back then, Well,
perfect example. When did you get in?
I bought in Diamond and Pearl era was when I really started collecting.
What was right before Diamond and Pearl?
EX era.
So do you have a connection to EX era? Like, do you care about like Skyridge and Neos? Like, do you have any connection to those?
I think that the Neo cards are sick.
Yeah, the Shinings. But like, do you have any connection to the regular Hollows?
I can't necessarily say that I have connection to a lot of the Hollows, but that less has to do with the appreciation for the artwork, and it has more to do with the fact that, like, there's not as many characters that I enjoy. Like, my first real expensive purchase that I ever made was a Lugia first edition from Neo Gen that I got in a PSA 9. And that was a card that I thought was a really cool card to collect because I'm a Lugia fan. But at the end of the day, like, okay, well,
I think you're a pretty hardcore collector, though.
Why would I go spend $3,000 on a freaking first edition Neo card of Lugia when I can go spend $200 and go get an alternate art which has a cooler art design? It's because I have an appreciation for the card. Like, I think it's a cool card, even though I never grew up at all with WotC era.
I think you're a pretty hardcore collector, though, right?
I mean,
I mean, at your core, maybe you're
I guess
not
it depends
collecting
on what
right
you
now.
consider hardcore. I guess it depends on what you consider hardcore, because I wouldn't consider myself
My
hardcore.
point is like, I'm sure that 99% of the people that walk in your card shop are not going to have anywhere near the knowledge you have on Pokemon, or going to have like the goals that you have for your collection in Pokemon. Like, the most people are casual collectors. Like, they open packs, they fill binders, maybe they have some like grails they got themselves. Like, they don't think of Pokemon the way people in this like investing space do, or it's a whole different scenario is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I can kind of see that. It's just, yeah, I guess I just get so hung up on it because it's hard to say, because we're both experiencing things anecdotally. Like, there isn't really a
I'm trying to like look forward and capture like the majority. I'm not trying to anticipate where like the hardcore people are gonna.
But that's why I say it's anecdotal, because you and I look at the majority differently.
You
right?
think the majority is not is hardcore collectors?
No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, going back to the original debate that we had, I was saying that I see a lot more collectors that collect cards that were past their time or before their time, and you're saying that you don't see that nearly as often. You know, like I said in the example I gave, there's a lot of kids that grew up
not past their time.
Well,
Like,
no, sorry. Kids that grew up in like the Sword and Shield era, Sun and Moon era, that have collections from WotC or EX. Because I think the biggest thing, and this is the most common thing I hear all the time from kids, is that the idea, and this is how I was when I was a kid, right? Oh my God, I own a WotC card. That's so cool. I know nothing about this card, but this is one of the rarest cards ever because it's an old 25-year-old card. Isn't that so cool? I own a piece of it. Like, when you're a little kid, man, like, your connection to WotC is, there's like no connection to it other than the fact that it's known as like one of the OG rare cards that people thought was so cool because it's like one of the original things. Like, you didn't grow up collecting it, but you know, like, that was something where whenever I have a conversation with kids nowadays about like, oh, what do you like about this WotC card? Oh, it's just so cool because it's a WotC card. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, a kid literally has just some regular like common Pidgey card from freaking Fossil or Jungle or whatever, and they don't care about the card other than the fact that it's WotC and they get to own a WotC card. Like, it's crazy to think like kids will get excited about that. And so for me, it's like, you'd be surprised with the amount of times where kids will literally just have the most random cards that you will never anticipate them to own. And then all of a sudden, like, they just appreciate it because they like that it's older, along with, you know, collecting certain characters. So, you know, that's I don't know, that's where it's a little bit different for me, because I'm just like, man, I see it so often. Like, I can't really say that I don't see, like, it's very rare that I come across kids, unless they're like new in the hobby, that don't also have some of the older cards, whether it was passed on to them or they went back and bought it from someone because they just wanted to own one WotC card or an EX card. They're like collecting some of the cards that was before their time.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's anecdotal. I mean, we can't really pull up the data on it.
Right. No, all this is just talking.
Yeah, all this is just talking, which everyone loves to we should just love it. Yeah.
Let's take some questions. Let's take some comments.
Oh, let's see this one. Whoopsie.
Yes.
Should we be alarmed Eli is referencing all those interactions with kids? Oh man, that's crazy. Hey, you guys wouldn't understand, man. Back home in Oregon, I was known as the Pokemon guy on the block. Like, my parents, all their like friends that were neighbors that had kids, and they would be like, yeah, what's your son do for a living? Oh yeah, he sells Pokemon cards. I'd have kids knocking on my door being like, are you the Pokemon guy? Can I show you my Pokemon collection? I love Pokemon so much, blah 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 blah, and I want to see what your collection looks like. And it was just like something that was so often. And then obviously coming, you know, growing up around a card shop and then also being a part of a card shop in Oregon, you get to interact with a lot of collectors. And so, and then obviously we have our own card shop that we're getting ready to launch here in the next month or two. So we're going to have that experience to be a part of. So I'm honestly extremely excited. Eli's coming with his white van. That's crazy. That's crazy, bro. Get out of here with that. Oh my god. What is there any specific questions you see that is appropriate to converse about?
I mean, other than everything we just discussed, everyone going back and forth on either your side or my side on that stuff. I'm trying to scroll back up further. Hold on. I just see Tom Piss says, answer the question, Alex. I'm trying to think. Did someone ask me a question?
I think that was in reference to when I was asking, were you talking about from an investment perspective or a collector's perspective?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, here's an interesting question. I like this. This is a good question. Do you think anyone in 5 years who gets in the hobby will want to collect the sets from today? That's a really good question. Because to your point, right? If alternate arts are the old stuff, will people care about alternate arts in like 5-10 years from now? Because if alternate arts are now lame because we've got the new holographic card that spawns in front of you live. Like, I mean, you never know.
Yeah. I say 5 years, no, definitely. I mean, think about it. 5 years ago, like XY is 10 years old now. Like, yeah, 5 years, I'm not worried about. If you were to say like 15 years, then I really have to think about it. But like tag teams are 5 years old. Yeah, alt arts will still be loved in 5 years. Hands down, 100%.
Why do you feel so confident that alt arts will be loved?
I mean, we still have XY cards being loved. We have tag teams and Sun and Moon cards being loved. Those are 5 and 10 years old already. Why would this time around be different?
Well, because it's not the new hotness, obviously. I mean,
neither is that stuff. Like an XY Phantom Forces Gengar isn't a hot card, but it's like 100% up in the last year. I mean,
you're literally making the exact argument I was making.
No, I'm not, because I told you, as long as the art holds up, right? And you didn't listen hear the other thing I said. And because in XY, it brought some of the most amount of people back in the hobby with Pokemon Go, the game, with evolutions and generations, right? Before the whole pandemic, Hidden Fates, all that stuff, before the Sword and Shield brought the most amount of people back in the hobby ever. Like all these generations, they have reasons that people are going to go back because they have some sort of nostalgia of when they got back in the hobby. And on top of that, the art actually holds up pretty well. But like, why, if no one, people always talk about the dead years of Pokemon, like 01 to 2015 when the hobby was really, so why is anyone going to go back to somewhere they were never in the hobby, didn't come back in the hobby, have no connection to, the art doesn't hold up as well? Like that doesn't make as much sense to me as going back to collect something like Sword and Shield, which had the most amount of popularity of any era since probably base set, is my point.
So you think that the Gengar artwork from XY holds up?
I think so. Do you?
Not really. No, I don't think it's that good. Do you think that maybe because you grew up in the or I shouldn't say grew up, but like you grew up collecting the XY era, you think that because there was a lot of arguments that were saying XY era was like the dead times for Pokemon, and it was the times in which Pokemon had like zero hype until you had evolutions come out.
No, I mean, even like you look at like generations, like the Flareon EX with all the evolutions on it, like, nah, man, they have tons of cards that hold up, absolutely.
But I'm not saying that because like you said like the Gengar card, right? And you use the Gengar card an example, but like they had so many other high rarity Gengar cards that were introduced, like Gengar Prime from Heart Gold Soul Silver and Gengar Level X.
Well, notice I didn't say the top rarity. The secret rare Gengar is the top rarity in that set. It's just a half art EX. Like that doesn't do much for me. Like I'm not just here to shill XY. Like I just feel like Gengar full art's a really cool looking card. I think there's a lot of cool full arts in that era. I mean, the Silver Dialga, the only silver card ever made. Like I think it's got stuff going for it.
Do you think the Gengar Prime or Gengar Level X card holds up?
Yeah. It's not for me, dude. It's not for me.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like you're asking my opinion. Like my opinion is nothing.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like now you're talking more anecdotally than to your own experience growing up with XY.
Dude, no, okay. Just as like, and I get art subjective and stuff, but it's still a full art, complete artwork, textured card compared to these little half art cards you're talking about. It's a completely different thing to compare. I'm not comparing regular XY EXs like or regular XY like hollows or break cards or something. Come on.
Right, but I mean, the examples I gave were the two highest rarities, and I'm comparing it to the highest rarity within XY. I don't know. I just find it funny because the consistent like go back to is always XY, which is what you kind of grew up with. So like
Go
for
to
me,
Sun and Moon. Go to Sun and Moon. Like take anything in Sun and Moon. It just holds up more. Like they hold up better than older sets do back in the middle eras. Like as far as like artwork of what kids like now and what people like now, they look similar is what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I guess I think it's funny because it's funny because I feel like we're making a very similar argument, but the only difference is you keep making it to your generation. And so it
No,
just
I'm not,
feels
dude.
so funny.
My generation is not XY though. My generation's base set. What I'm trying to say is
But you grew up with
a
XY
large
being the
majority
main
of
thing you
people.
collected though,
No,
right?
but Eli, it's not my opinion, right? You can look at Google Trends, you can look at anything. It's common knowledge. Pokemon Go, the game, and evolutions brought back the most amount of people in the hobby since the pandemic. Logan Paul, since Sword and Shield, like that was before those. That was when the most amount of people re-entered the hobby. So of course, that time is always going to be a sought after time for a whole group of people.
But that was the last set of the XY generation. You can't say one set made everyone
Well,
love
Pokemon Go was released before that.
No,
Game.
well, no. Pokemon Go came out around the same time Evolutions came out.
It was
Pokemon Go
before. It was like half a year before it, but yeah, I've looked them up before. My point is, dude, it's like knowing that it's like there's nothing that a ton of people entered the hobby in like 2008. Like, what would bring a bunch of people back to go collect that era? Is my point.
So, let's see. Pokemon. I'm actually curious. When did Pokemon Evolutions XY release come out? So, Pokemon Evolutions XY came out in November 16th of 2016. Pokemon Go, the game, came out July 6, 2016. So literally,
I said a half a year before. I was close.
Okay. So, I mean,
5 months.
I mean, 4 months, but that's not like, it's not like it literally came out and then all of a sudden like Pokemon Go came out and then, oh man, Pokemon Go came out. Everyone loves the XY era. Like it was like, no, Pokemon Go came out. And then 4 months later, they came out with Evolutions as like a celebration of Pokemon Go.
Right. And then every set that was out in the storefronts at that time, all those later XY sets were all getting opened and collected, and people have memories of that. They got in the hobby during it.
Man,
you don't think that.
Bro,
you can hate XY. I don't care. My point is, dude, I can hate Sword and Shield, but I can't say the most amount of people in Pokemon didn't come back in the hobby during Sword and Shield time. I can't say that.
I can tell you that here's what happened for me, at least. And this is just what I have had.
Just pull up Google Trends, dude. Just pull up Google Trends.
But the problem is we're pulling up Google Trends around Evolutions, not XY era. XY era performed horrendously compared to what was happening with Evolutions. Evolutions
Eli, listen to yourself. That's like saying Evolving Skies brought me in the hobby, but I didn't go back and open Fusion Strike and Chilling Strike. I can go Chilling Reign and all these other sets that were around the same exact time. You didn't just open Evolution and say, all right, I'm done. Let's go to Sun and Moon. They were
that
opening
is exactly what happened for a lot of people. That is exactly what happened for a lot of people. Yes, okay. Yes. I got back into the hobby with Sun and Moon because of Hidden Fates, Cosmic Eclipse, and Unified Minds. And you know what I did not do? I didn't open Sun and Moon base. I didn't open Guardians Rising. I didn't open the original tag team sets past that because for me, I was moving on to what was coming out next. So for me, at the end of the day, like, I guess the point I'm making with that is like XY, the entire generation was considered arguably one of the like worst generations performance wise. And like, there was a lot of people that left during the XY generation. But then of course, Evolutions comes out, brings a ton of people back into the hobby. But those people didn't all of a sudden come into the hobby and say, let's go, collect all the older XY generation sets. They said, I appreciate Evolutions. and then either they stuck with evolutions and continue collecting what sets came out next, or they came into the hobby, thought it was cool, and left. Because I had a lot of people that came in because of evolutions, but then went and opened Steam Siege and said, wow, I guess evolutions is the only cool set because Steam Siege came out right before, and holy crap, did Steam Siege suck to open.
All right.
Look, you know,
let's just say this. All right. Just because I can say, to back to this question, that I think alt arts will be popular in 5 years does not mean that I think that people are going to go back 15 years to collect sets they never even heard of. That's a completely different thing, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess only time's gonna tell.
I mean, we see it. Like, people are still collecting things like, and look, yeah, you can go back and say like, yeah, there's sales of those things, like, but like we're seeing high volume sales from Sun and Moon still, like every day, and it's like Sun and Moon's 5+ years old. A lot of those sets. So like, I just don't think 5 years is that long a time. Of course, people are going to want alt arts in 5 years.
What about 15 years?
That's what I said. That's a whole different question.
Yeah.
That's where I might start saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, maybe Moonbrand will always be a thing because it's just become kind of iconic. Like, that card will probably stay in the test of time. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I can agree with that. I think 5 years, yeah, if you look at Sun and Moon compared to how it's been performing. Yeah, I think I mean, because let's think, how old is XY? XY first came out, or last came out in 2016. So XY is 2016, about 8 years old. I think yeah, a good barometer will be 10 years. I think it'll be interesting to see in 10 years what ends up happening, and if the cards do find their appreciation, because who knows, alternate arts could be garbage all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you know,
it's possible. I mean, I don't know how much more they can do with cards anymore.
Here's an interesting question. I like the cards and evolutions that were not reprints of base set. Do you guys like to collect the reprints because they're cheaper, or do you like to pay more and get the originals? That's a good question. I like that. That's good.
I guess it depends on how you collect, right? Like, I know people that want to collect the evolutions Holo Charizard just because it's so hard to get as a 10, so they want that, like, that scarcity or that condition rarity factor or whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people would want to collect the originals or not because they're or collect evolution just because it's cheaper and they don't actually like the set. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, obviously I can only speak for myself on this, but I liked evolutions because I thought it was cool that you were able to chase a holographic Charizard, that it wasn't the same, but you were able to chase it without having to go spend a ton of money on like a base set pack. So you got like a similar experience without it being, like, it's kind of replicable, but not, like, you're never going to get the same chase as you are opening the original, but it's an affordable way to try and chase it where you're wanting to pull that holographic Charizard. That's how I looked at it. But I don't know. Did you care about the holographic Charizard more than the Mega, or vice versa? Or what would you like?
When I started to see it, I'm trying to think. Like, I liked the full arts when I started opening. It was new to me. Like, I had never seen that before. Because I left Pokemon back like end of Gym Challenge. I opened a few Neo sets and that was it. So like, I'd never seen anything like that. It was awesome. Like, the irregular EXs were cool to me back then. Like, opening a regular EX card was awesome. The full arts with the texture, that's what I was chasing, those texture cards, like the full art Dragonite and the Misty and Brock. Like, those were awesome to me. So like, I liked those a lot more than the Holo Charizard at the time, but that's me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I can definitely see that. Yeah, it's always interesting because there is definitely the eye of the beholder question when it comes to why people collect, right? Because some people like to collect because they think that, like the example you gave, you cared more about the like feeling of pulling a cool art design. But then for me, I liked the feeling of like collecting an item that I couldn't afford to collect, or it was past my time. And maybe that just comes ultimately to the fact that I am someone in talking my own personal experience, obviously, I am a huge fan of history. And so being able to collect history is extremely fun to me. And obviously, there's certain points in history that are extremely unaffordable. So it's a lot easier to replicate that through sets such as Evolutions, where you can go collect very similar print versions and find that similar appreciation for it without having to go shell out several $100 to open one of the packs,
True.
So, because it's a cool experience when you're like, hey, man, like I couldn't afford, first edition base set packs, but I can afford Evolutions. Like, it's cool. I get to get that experience. And for me, collecting the artworks, they're sure they might be lackluster, but, the sentimental value is still there because it feels like I'm able to collect an artwork that was appreciated historically.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't answer that question. We have absolutely no idea. How long will Hidden Fates and Celebrations trade sideways before the pump? Did you see the price of the Celebrations Ultra Premium Collection? Have you been watching
Yeah,
that?
it's down. I
It's
will say Hidden
down.
Fates, though. I think Hidden Fates is finally starting to see an uptick eventually, or finally. I will say the Hidden Fates, let's see, ETBs, lowest list now is over 180 on TCG Player. So it's at its 1 year high. It is back at its 1 year high.
Yeah.
So Hidden Fates does seem like it's finally starting to move. Someone said this to me, I think Paldean Fates helped because you see Shining Fates actually seeing an uptick. Nothing crazy, right? But it's on the uptick, right? It's getting into like the high 40s in ETB. Now Hidden Fates is up at its 1 year high. It's starting to move back up again. So I think the Paldean Fates definitely got people, going and wanting to get those shinies.
If they make another silver card, would the original silver card gain value? Do you see that question?
Yeah. I mean, I would think. I don't think it would hurt it. Maybe it would. I mean, here's the only issue is Dialga. Again, you could argue about that. I don't know if Dialga means something to you. I don't think Dialga means a whole lot to people. So, I mean, if they made like a silver card of an actual like really popular Pokemon, would it hurt it? I don't know, because is a lot of the value because it's the only silver card ever created. It's interesting to think about, but I think just it being, what it is already, and, it's fairly hard to grade. It's kind of hard to find a near mint condition these days. And the early XY was very low printed. I think it'll always be fine no matter if they print another one or not.
Here's an interesting question. Let's say that silver card, that exact same silver card, was introduced in one of the next sets of Scarlet and Violet, and it had never been released before. Just that card. How do you think it would perform?
I think it'd still be one of the top, probably the top hit in the set. As far as like, oh man, I think it'd still be, well, I guess Scarlet and Violet. It's so hard to tell yet because Scarlet and Violet's still so new. I mean, if we're looking at every Sun and Moon, XY, Sword and Shield set and how the top rarities have performed, I would think it would still do pretty well.
Why do you
judging with Scarlet and Violet's going to continue that same trajectory when it's 3, 4, 5 years old? We just don't know yet.
So why do you think it would still perform really well?
Because like most all of the top hits in the other sets in these other generations have all done well. It's just taking some time. And I've talked about this before, like booster boxes, they only take like 2, 3, 4 years to start performing. Singles, they can take they can take 4, 5, 6, 7, years to start performing really well. And so I just think the singles are going to take longer in Scarlet and Violet. I think it's way too early to be worried about single values in Scarlet and Violet because the sets are only a year old or less.
Well, I guess the question I'm asking really is, what about the card? Obviously, take away the fact of how it's performed now, but comparing it to if it were put in a modern day set with the art style, what would make it hold up its value?
I mean, obviously just being unique, and I think it would do fine as long as it wasn't like kind of how they do with the full arts and the golds. As long as it wasn't just a reprint of the full art and gold onto a silver or something. If it was its own unique shape, its own unique art, and it was silver, so it wasn't just like a copy paste. Oh, this is the silver version of that card. I just think the uniqueness of it would drive it. I mean, it's kind of like why and again, like obviously I was kind of I was somewhat wrong, somewhat right. Like some of them have been good, but that's kind of like why I like Shining Legends is, it took the uniqueness of the Neos and remade it because it's a unique design, right? It's kind of why I like Gold Stars and Shinings and Crystals do well. It's because they're not just some old random card. They're actually a unique style that weren't done everywhere else. So I don't know. I like that. I like uniqueness.
So do you think that the main reason why the card would hold up then would be because of the fact that it's the only it would be the only silver card? Because like obviously if
Definitely part of it. Are you saying if it was still a Dialga?
I guess what I'm saying is like the card itself, if you take away the fact that it's a silver Pokemon, it's just a full art Dialga. But then slap silver over it, it's super cool. So I guess what I'm saying is like obviously if it was just a full art Dialga nowadays, it would get absolutely crushed. No one would give a shit. But like if it is a silver Dialga, there's never been a silver card before.
Right. And if it was a gold one, it'd get crushed too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it's like,
it's literally just the uniqueness of the card. I agree. Like there's nothing else special about it.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting to see how like the art design isn't really that special, but it's silver, so now it's special. Like what if they came out with like a red Dialga? And I'm not even saying like red, I mean like the card was just red. That's literally it. That was it. That was just a red card. Like what's
I don't know. I don't know, man. It's so hard. Like maybe
Rainbow
not.
Card time, guys. You can collect a red, a green, a blue Dialga card. Like collect all of them, make a rainbow Dialga.
It is interesting to think about.
I mean, I don't know. It is kind of funny.
Pokemon should try something like that.
I could totally see them doing something like that where you could collect. It sounds so stupid. Sounds kind of cheese, but like I could totally see them doing something like that where you have different color variations of a card
and have an actual rare card.
Yeah. We see reprints in Pokemon having good to very good value in many cases. We don't see this in other hobbies. Why do you think this is? Do you see this as a concern or is this a unique aspect?
We don't see that.
Do you understand what he means by that?
I'm going to read it myself. We see reprints in Pokemon having good okay, we don't see this in other hobbies. Why do you guys think this is? Do you see this as a concern? We don't see this in other hobbies? What does that mean?
That's what I'm confused about because he says
like
we see
reprints. Maybe I guess like sports don't have reprints. Maybe
because he says we see reprints in Pokemon having good to very good value in many cases. I don't know what he means by that. I guess that's where I'm hung up.
I mean, there's plenty of Yu-Gi-Oh cards that have reprinted versions of cards that did extremely well, depending on the release of them and things. Like there's very high value, like Blue Eyes.
When he says reprints, is he referencing like remakes? Is that what he means?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that's because when I thought reprints, I thought literally reprints, like Evolving Sky's got a reprint. You know what I mean? like So
reprints of older sets is what your average player is saying.
He says
I mean, again, like Legend of Blue Eyes, like just got released from the 25th anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's already like double. You already double your money on that. Like, I don't know. It seems
so
like
then I guess yeah. In the context of like evolutions, yeah, like you're reprinting older cards. So we see reprints in Pokemon having good to very good value in many cases. We don't see this in other hobbies. Why do you guys think this is? Do you see this as a concern or is it a unique aspect? I feel like you see that in other hobbies.
I mean, if it's not the exact sets, I mean, that's what Masters is in Magic, right?
Well, I mean,
they reprint all the top cards and they put it in a set and.
Man, so I'm not an expert in Magic, so please take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I will say, as someone who sells a lot of Magic bulk, they are really good about making 30 different versions of the same card. The amount of different soul rings there are is crazy. So it's kind of hard because it's like one of those things with Magic where there's definitely cards that have gotten reprints that were like fan favorites and they performed well. But then there's been instances where they've just reprinted the card constantly over and over and over and over and over again. And it hasn't really worked out because it's just kind of, but it's also hard too, as well, because Magic is a lot more of like a player game rather than like a collector, So I would say that to kind of answer your question, it's less to do with like a uniqueness of like people do or do not care about the card being printed. It has more to do with the fact that Pokemon is more or less a base of collectors more so than players. And so other hobbies where you have a very similar kind of collector base style of fans, you're going to see that more often.
That's the answer, actually. Eli's got the answer. It's because Pokemon is a collector's hobby, and a lot of these other ones are players' hobbies.
Just kind of follow up. Oh, well, reprints of older sets, I mean, they get eaten like crazy. We don't even feel reprints at all. Yeah, we do see that happen. Reprints definitely get eaten up if it's a really good set. I mean, imagine if Evolving Skies got reprinted, how quickly it would just absolutely get eaten up.
Dude, you and your Evolving Skies reprint.
I'm hoping if I just put it out into existence, it'll happen at some point.
No, it won't, because I keep putting out it not to happen into existence. So
yeah, right. I'm just praying for the love of God, please.
I'm equally as hard praying, guys, for no reprints. So
how do you
I
feel?
got it covered.
How do you about the new Pokemon like Iron Valiant, Gouging Fire, Horizon Zero Dawn, Giraffe? Do you think they'll ever catch on? Come on, Alex, answer the tough question.
Read the super chat, bro.
The super chat. How much? Thank you. Survivor of the Sealed Discord, join for big gains. Wow.
Eli and Alex are level 1 investors.
Is that what it said?
That's the name.
Investor trannies. Oh no, that's crazy. Someone paid $2 to say that.
I told you you're gonna have trolls here today.
We are gonna have trolls.
It's true.
But we're always gonna have trolls, because here's what's gonna happen, Alex, is we're gonna have a lot of people that agree with you and then roast me, and then there's gonna be a lot of people that agree with me and roast you. So it's
that's all fine and good. I was telling you there's gonna be trolls from the issues going on my channel and my Discord.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
they're just gonna roast us both as level 1 investors.
Level 1.
It's true, man. I just got into this hobby. Okay, Pokemon seems cool. I'm a big fan. That's so funny. Go back to the original question. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
How do you feel about new Pokemon? Do you think they'll ever catch on? Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to get in the mind of like kids. Here's the thing. I played, I talked about it before. I played the new Pokemon games, and I liked them. But I like some of these Pokemon, like I never even got any type of attachment or any like Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon. Like I didn't even really get a sense of those in the game at all. Like there were other Pokemon that like and other like trainers and things that I 100% having a connection to. Like like Arvin was in the game, so I get that, and like he had them a boss diff and stuff. And
did you grow up with Salamence or like Salamence at all as a Pokemon?
No, and that could be a part of it.
Yeah, but it's Salamence was a hugely popular Pokemon during Gen 3.
So maybe that's it, just being more of a fan of the original Pokemon, not like the futuristic form. But like it's just it's kind of strange to base a whole set around these future forms, because I don't even know if the game, like even for like the kids brand new, I don't know if the game made those popular enough for the kids or new collectors to care about.
So let me ask you this. In Gen 3, 4, or 5, are there any Pokemon that you can think of that you really appreciate or like?
If I could look at a list of Gen 4 and 5, it'd be probably very scarce. But like Gen 3, yeah, if I could see like a list of the Gen 3 Pokemon, there's a good amount, I would think. Like
I mean, Blaziken.
I still played like, Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald. So like I remember a lot of the Pokemon.
So like, like you've got Blaziken, Latios,
yeah, Blaziken, the starter.
You've got Swampert.
Yep.
Sceptile.
Who's all? I sometimes get Gen 2 and Gen 3 like mixed up. Like where's like this Tyranitar from there?
Tyranitar's Gen 2.
Gen 2, and then Ursaring's Gen 2.
Yep. Gen 3 is Salamence, is one of the bigger ones.
Well, I mean, obviously Rayquaza. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't tell you some.
Yeah.
If you told me your favorites, I'd probably agree with some of them.
Salamence is definitely one of my favorites. Man, I always went for a Salamence in my playthrough. Whenever I played the game, I would always go for a Salamence. I mean, see, it's always hard too because it's different in the playthrough versus like if you were to collect the card. Like I'm not here.
Well, okay, here. I mean, it's not like my favorite, but like
thank you. FOMO brought up a good one. Metagross, that's a good one. Yep.
And like Gardevoir's from there, right?
Yeah,
like, it's not like one of my favorites, but it's like it's a huge Pokemon.
Sick, dude. Gardevoir is great. Gardevoir was also another one. So how I'd run my playthrough in Emerald is I'd start off in the first route, and I would just farm for a Ralts, and then that would be my second Pokemon I always get, and then a bird. I would usually either wait till I got a Skarmory or I would get a Swellow. Just depends on how lazy I wanted to be with it. Sometimes I would just catch a Pelipper and use it as a TM slave just so it can use fly. And then I would never run in Metagross though, because Metagross you didn't get till late game because you can only get it as a gift as a Beldum from Steven. So it was like level 5 and it just took forever to evolve because it wouldn't evolve into the 50s. Oh, another one. Feebas. Oh yeah, buddy. Feebas. I would always fish for Feebas to get a Milotic.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely more of a Gen 2 over Gen 3, I think, man. Sorry.
Do you not like Milotic or Milotic or however everyone wants to roast me pronouncing it? You know Milotic or Milotic?
I know the Pokemon. Like, I'm just not. No,
dude, I love that Pokemon. That Pokemon's gorgeous. That Pokemon, I don't even think it has a Mega Evolution, does it? I don't think it does. Altaria.
Card? I mean, I don't think it has a card. No.
What about Altaria? Do you like Altaria at all? No, not an Altaria fan.
It's all right. I mean, it's just like there's nothing that like stands out that like
Altaria is sick, dude. Altaria is pretty sick. Dude, you guys got me. I am the Shuckles kind of guy. I do love me some Shuckles. Have you ever seen those funny videos of the guy who's like who talks as a Shuckle?
No, what?
You haven't? It's me, Shuckles. Yeah. And there was one time where like someone was like trying to catch shiny Pokemon, and the Shuckles like has a paintbrush and he paints himself blue, and he's like, "I'm a shiny Shuckles. Come get me." You've never seen those videos, bro?
No. What? It's like on TikTok or something?
No, it's not. It was like old YouTube videos about a guy that like acted like this super happy Shuckles that just wanted people to catch him, but no one wanted a Shuckles, and so he kept trying to like act like it was so funny. I can't remember who the editor was that did the video, but they were super popular videos. They were so funny. Yeah, it's like old YouTube, dude. Yeah, dude, there's so many good ones. I mean, Latios, obviously, legendaries that come to mind. The Reggies obviously come to mind. I mean, obviously, Kyogre, Groudon, Rayquaza come to mind. The starters, obviously. This one might be a little bit of a different one than most people liked, but I really like Shiftry. Shiftry was one of the ones I liked a lot. Mariana is another one I really liked a lot. I mean, there's a lot in Gen 3. Okay, well, how about Gen 4? There's got to be some in Gen 4 that you like. No? Not at all?
I'd be hard pressed to name a Gen 4, to be honest with you.
Wow. My goodness gracious there, bud. He's like Pokemon, not from X, Y, and Sun and Moon.
I mean, I'll name like almost every 150. I'll name every 151. I'll name a lot of Gen 2. It's just like Gen 3, I was like, I played the games, but I was getting out, didn't really collect. It's like,
do you like Deoxys? That's a good one.
Yeah, Deoxys is cool for sure.
What about Jirachi? Or do you like Jirachi?
I mean, Jirachi's, the cards are cool. It's just like, it's just kind of, it's all right.
Here's one.
Jirachi in my mind, I don't know. It's like, we got Mew.
You got Mew. That's fair. But all right, let's see if we got a couple more questions, because we get sidetracked here forever just asking the game of like what your favorite Pokemon are from Gen 3 and 4. Yeah, it's I'd be hard pressed to say there. I mean, there's some Gen 5 Pokemon I like, but definitely, or sorry, not Gen 5, Gen 6, but Gen 6 is definitely tough. There's not like a crazy amount of Gen 6, I would say.
You're getting me roasted so hard in the chat.
Oh, really? What are they saying? Are they like
Geez,
saying
Alex,
like
purely investor in Gen 1 guy, shaking my head. Alex is
all your opinions
disgusted.
are being redacted now because they're finding out this guy doesn't even collect Gen 3 and 4. What is that? Well, here's the funny thing,
What
bro.
do you mean
Is a
you're
lot.
finding out? I've never
No,
claimed to.
no, I'm just messing with you. Well, it's funny though because you have a lot of people that grew up in like Gen 3 and 4, and so all these guys are like this is their generation. And so when you hear someone's not a big fan, they're like, "What the you
Pisses you
don't
off.
like
Yeah.
Garchomp? What's wrong with you, man? That's crazy." And I'm over here like Garchomp Giratina is my favorite Pokemon of all time. Like I absolutely love Gen 4. Gen 4 is a freaking awesome time, man. I would say that although Platinum is S tier to me, I could definitely see an argument for like Emerald being the best game they've ever made for sure. I think Emerald is an incredible game. Emerald is so good.
Jeez, the haters are coming out hard
They're
now.
coming for you, dude. It's happening, bro. The
This
haters.
Fargan Bastage guy was in my live trying to hate on me yesterday on Sunday.
Have you seen the video of the guy that like asks on a scale of 1 to 10 what your Pokemon knowledge is? Have you seen those videos shorts
Yeah.
before? How do
Yeah.
you think what would you say if you were to be quizzed by him? What number would you say?
If it well, he always usually asks people like
Like
where
what
you know.
generation?
If
Yeah,
I were to say Gen 1, Gen 2, I'd probably get like 9, 10 out of 10. If I were to say like all over, oh, it'd be probably brutal.
yeah. He like you get 4 in a row, and then he says, "Name this Pokemon." It's a Bramble. You're just screwed.
Yeah,
You're like,
I'd
"What's a
be screwed.
Bramble?"
Absolutely. No
Yeah,
chance.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
I feel bad.
if it was all generations, no, I'd be like getting 5 out of 10, I'd be lucky.
I feel like I would put up a showing from generation 1 through 7, but like if you wanted me to go perfect 100%, it'd be 1 through 5. 1 through 5 I would absolutely destroy. But I start to get a little shaky in Sun and Moon because I didn't play Sun and Moon. I played XY and I played Sword and Shield, but I still have yet to play Sun and Moon. I just couldn't get behind the gimmicks that was with Sun and Moon. What will base set booster? See, okay, I hate to say this, but like I'm not the biggest fan of questions like these because it's like they're questions that you can't like really predict. Like we're just speculating here. What will base set boosters be in the next 5 to 10 years? Will people still think they're the Grail? Like people are still going to think they're the Grail, but it's not like I can just put a number out there and say it's going to be X amount of dollars. You know, it's kind of hard.
All right, here, I'll throw something out there.
Oh, here we go. Controversial.
Not financial advice. This is just what I would do.
Controversy. That's what Alex loves.
If we take whatever base set booster box is going for right now, and I put that same amount of money into Evolving Skies right now, I think I'll make more money in Evolving Skies.
Well, that's not a hot take. I guess the question he's asking is like,
how is that not a hot take?
I think we need a better hot take where he's, I was hoping you were going to say Evolving Skies is going to be more expensive than base set boosters. That's what
it won't be more expensive, but I just don't see the growth. Like it's just guys, base set, if you guys don't understand, it was printed like probably as much as modern sets are printed now. Like it was printed so much. So it's like it's just not rare. So the item isn't rare. Like maybe it's become scarce because there's not a lot left. But then you look at like the packs, you get a holo every 3 packs. There's no chase. There is 0 chase. And so it's just like, I don't know. I don't see it.
Dude, I'm just loving just like the reassurances of people just feeding into my opinions on the best generation games. Like everyone keeps saying like, yeah,
well, this is your channel to be fair.
Dude, no, but like everyone's over here like Emerald, Platinum, Heart Gold, Black and White. Those were some of the best games that they ever came out with. And I'm like, yes, this is my people. Like, yes, this is my stuff, man. That's what I grew up with. Like, it's so funny because you might not think like Platinum versus Diamond and Pearl is that big of a difference, but it was a massive difference. The afterplay that you got from Platinum was so good because like I remember as a kid, one of my favorite things to do after I beat the Elite Four was go to the Battle Cafe and you could re-battle gym leaders. And they had like their Pokemon maxed out, like not level 100, but like they were all at higher levels. And it was such a fun time with the afterplay that you could get with going into certain like regions and exploring with platinum, where you didn't really have any sort of like, there was like some afterplay in Diamond and Pearl, but not nearly the same as you did platinum. Yeah, Black and White also had the best story arc, bar none, in Pokemon. Like Lord N's character development, you're like, this is not just a generic Pokemon game. Like the character development, this is incredible. Yeah, I miss the days. Heart Gold was great too, because Heart Gold, dude, you could play that game for hours because it had both regions. It had the Johto and the Kanto. So like you could literally play Gen 2, and then when you finish the game, go play Gen 1. Like it was a massive game. Like there was so much afterplay that you could get. And you could also, as well, part of the event, get a Gen 3 starter. So it was
Here's an idea for your store, dude. You just need to have a bunch of those like Pokemon Snap type game displays, and you just need to have all the games in your store ready to play so people can just walk in and just game for hours.
Dude, that would get people stuck. People just show up and just play the games. That's all they would do. That'd be a problem. Man, all right, we should probably start wrapping up here. We've been going for 2 hours, and you know how my camera gets. So we'll ask one of our last 2 questions, and then we'll kind of just end it up here. Let's see if we can find anything that's a good question. Wait.
What?
Oh, just someone asked a question about, it was to me in particular. It says, which is the best place to buy vintage Pokemon cards that are raw? It's kind of hard, honestly, to answer, because for me, like, it's such a tough question. Because like raw is so hard to come by. Like
I'd say in person. I'd say live events, card shows, card shops, collecticons. Like,
yeah, like you could go Facebook, or you could go like, okay, here's what I will say. You could go Facebook Marketplace, you could go Mercari, you could go eBay. There's a lot more risk that comes with that. With all of that being said, there's a buddy of mine who is a huge Gen 4 fan like me. And he literally has preset filters that he puts on eBay for buying level X cards. And he has had numerous cards that he's got on there that were listed as near mint that he sent in for grading that got 10s. So he is very diligent though, and asks for a ton of pictures and make sure that it's a reputable seller. But it's definitely happened where he's made a lot of purchases on eBay where he can find these vintage cards, but it's just hard because there's so much filtering you have to do versus in person. You just kind of go and you see the card. So like you can make it happen online. There's just so much more work that goes into it versus if you're in person, you just see the card and you can just inspect it, you know? So it's kind of a mixed answer, but that's kind of what it is. No, we don't know if there's going to be more 151 product. Someone asked that question. All right, let's see. I want one more good one, and then we can just finish it up. Is there one you see?
Someone asked, what do you guys think perform better percentage-wise, trainer galleries or alt arts?
Percentage-wise, probably trainer galleries, but which one's a better investment? Probably alternate arts. Because if a card goes from $1 to $5, that's not like...
Yeah, that's the issue. Is like it has to be like over a certain amount, like a $10 trainer gallery.
Yeah. You're over here like my $1 card turned into $5. It's like, all right, well, that's gonna be a card that's gonna be expensive to ship when you talk about it from a percentage perspective. Did you notice the TCG player upped the price minimum? Did you notice?
Yeah.
If you guys don't know, TCG player, it's $1.22 now. If you order all orders under $5. So shout out to you guys that are TCG player sellers. You're going to get an extra 22 or 23 cents now. So get excited.
Get that Lambo. Get that beach home.
Hey, bro, for people that buy stamps from the post office, it matters, bro. That helps the margins a ton, so that you're not losing. Because people were like losing their butt a lot of times on envelope orders if they're buying them straight from the post office. Alrighty. I'm not really seeing anyone that like is just a really good banger of a question to kind of round it off with. I'm sad. I wanted to see one good question, but I mean, we've had a lot of questions we've already gone through and a lot of discussion / debates that people love to comment on. Yeah, honestly, man, I think, do you feel like we're good to wrap it up here, or do you still want to find one more?
I think we're good. I mean, I think we took
we've
pretty
been
much
going for 2
I don't think we
hours,
missed
dude.
anybody.
We've been going for 2 hours.
Yeah, I don't think we've missed anybody. I think we pretty much took everything.
All right, cool. So we'll wrap it up here then. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll just end it here then. I want to thank you guys all so much for stopping by. As always, if you want to support the channel, leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, really helps us out. Alex has all his information down below too if you want to go check out his channel. And then lastly, if you guys don't already know and you want to get access to Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Flesh and Blood, and so much more at wholesale prices, we got our wholesale program. Links down in the description below to join that. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to message me on Discord. But any last thing you want to say before we head on out?
That's it, man.
You said peace sign, baby. All right. Talk to you guys next Tuesday. Peace.